Hi, this is Dr. Cairns with a brief lecture on compensation laws, compensation philosophy, and strategy and compensation. This information is obtained from your SHRM module on compensation and benefits. And first, let's look at the legal laws that are actually driving a lot of the compensation issues that we see. And some of these will look odd and strange to you because you won't encounter them because they are specific in certain areas. For example, the Davis-Bacon Act that sets wage rates for laborers and mechanics, but primarily those employed as contractors and subcontractors working for the federal government. And then you have the Walsh-Healey Public Contract Act, and that requires a federal minimum wage and overtime to be paid to employees working on federal government contracts, that those contracts that exceed $10,000. So you may draw some understanding when you heard that President Obama increased the minimum wage for contractors and subcontractors. He was able to do so under the Walsh-Healey Act. And then one that's probably more applicable and to us is this Fair Labor Standards Act. And again, some changes that were made by the president that have been challenged and have been halted as of right now, but primarily looking at providing for minimum wages, overtime, how that's calculated on a federal level for non-exempt employees working, getting compensation for hours worked in excess of 40 a week, and then also some child labor protection. And where this comes into place is that sometimes there are state laws that will go beyond. So you'll have, for example, the aspect of overtime being paid on a daily rate, and those are happening, but on a federal level, it happens after 40 hours in a work week. Thus, you can construct those hours somewhat differently. And then Equal Pay Act is looking at, this was an amendment actually to the Fair Labor Standards Act, and requires that men and women be given equal pay for equal work in the same establishment. And then we've seen some other laws that have been passed in regards to this area of pay between men and women, most recently this past year. And then you have ERISA, the Employment, Retirement, Income Security Act, covers most private sector employee benefit plans that are voluntarily established and are maintained by an employer. It sets uniform minimum standards that have to be applied. In addition, employers have an obligation to provide promised benefits that satisfy ERISA. So there's some governance that comes into play when it comes to employee benefit plans. And then you have the Social Security Act, which is obviously getting a lot of attention there nowadays because of looking at Medicare and other sorts of things. But Social Security is an aspect that is actually, as I look at it, it's almost sort of like a Ponzi scheme, where today's people that are working are actually paying for those that have retired. And so subsequently, as long as you have people working and paying into Social Security, that's able to fund those that are actually receiving Social Security. So a lot of different things to think about there. And then let's talk about a little bit about what's our compensation philosophy. How do we establish that? And looking at it from various different perspectives, because we have some thinking, obviously, that's flavored by things that we may see in the media or that we've grown up to with conversations that have happened with our family and friends and others. But really, we're looking at a standpoint of having a philosophy that supports an organization's strategic plan. What are the initiatives of that business? What are their goals? What's their competitive outlook? How can we design and compensate our employees that help achieve the operating objectives of the company? So what are those compensation and total reward strategies? So we're thinking about it again in terms of our company structure and designing pay programs and different rewards that will hopefully support the strategies of that company in achieving their goals and objectives. And obviously it has to be able to attract talent, needs to be able to motivate people, needs to be able to retain people, reward them appropriately. It needs to include a variety of different things that are competitive to the marketplace as it relates to base pay, maybe some variable compensation, and a whole lot of different things of how the company plans to pay and reward competitively based on business conditions, as well as their ability to actually pay what their compensation that they have designed and want to do, and then have it be, is it equitable? Can it be defended and perceived as fair by the employees that are actually under those plans? Is it fiscally sensitive? Are the compensation philosophy, is it legal? Does it comply with laws, not only with those laws, but let's think about the spirit of those laws as well. So in order for a company, are they effectively communicating their philosophy and pay to employees? And obviously HR organizations play a key role in this as well. So a company has to decide, looking at how they align their compensation with strategy, from the standpoint of, do they want to be the company that leads or lags behind or matches what the market value is of the jobs that they have in their organization? And then how do they bundle their rewards, creating a total reward package that is not only pay but also benefits? So strategic decisions there. You'll find some companies that decide they want to pay more, have less benefits. There'll be others that will look at the benefits and have maybe lesser pay. So we could look at that and maybe make a generalization and say that the federal government, for example, may pay less but provide better benefits. We tend to kind of think like that, and then think of other areas where companies that will err on the side of having more pay and maybe less benefits. But how do you put a total package together? Because that's what people need to have in order to want to come and work for you. So you have to make sure that you're fulfilling your organization's mission and do that fiscally responsibly, but also having a competitive plan. And then looking at the external elements, again, that's comparing your organization across the competitive environment in term where you compete. So that comparison should reveal whether your organization pays at, above, or below its competitors for specific positions in an organization. And you have to be really honest with yourself when you're doing that. So you want to have a mix of compensation and benefits that contributes to the external competitiveness of your organization. So that concludes this lecture, as we looked at the laws that are foundational for compensation. We looked at compensation philosophy, and then lastly aligning that philosophy with the organization's strategies and business strategies.